my bid to keep you updated on my Miscanthus, I thought I'd do another video on them. So here we have lots of different types. It's my little collection really. I'm trying to grow them in pots and I'm trying to move them on into bigger pots over time. And it's not really the best way to do it because they do prefer to be in the garden where they will grow quicker, better and faster. Having said that, they do well in pots. So I've got quite a few Miscanthus and I'll just run through a few of them. I don't want to go through all of them because I've got too many to talk about, but there are different types, there's different sizes. There are the minute ones right up to the 14-foot Miscanthus that I've got that we'll look at later. And there are different leaf patterns and different leaf structures that go on. This being the zebra type grass, people think that it's all the same grass when you see a zebra grass. It's not. This one is called Golden Fleece. It's still a baby. Going to be quite a big grass eventually and quite a robust grass. But there are several different types of zebra grass. Can you believe there's one called giraffe? Etincelle is another one, another good one. And many, many, many more grasses. Goldbar as well, which is the one that I got a sport coming off of. And Goldbar is a very short one. So if you're looking for a short one, look for Miscanthus Sinensis Goldbar. And that would be probably your shortest of your zebra grasses. The more rarer ones is this particular one. This is called Gold Feather. And again, this is a sport from one called Silver Feather. Silver Feather, rather. So this is more golden in colour. Not so obvious at the moment because we're going into autumn. Well, we're in autumn. But generally, it has this gold look to the edge of the leaves. And it's gold feather. So it means gold feather in English. And I assume that the feather refers to this, the seed head. So there's quite a lot of different types of Miscanthus. As I said, you can get all sizes and all shapes. There's more down there of my collection. We'll not go down there. I'm going to show you the ones in the garden, really, that I think is probably worth you getting. So we'll start with this one up here. And this one's a Miscanthus Sinensis type. And it's the one in the black pot there, in the black pan pot. And I just keep it in there because I like to move this one around. I should put it in a nicer and prettier pot, but it don't really matter. And this particular one is called Red Cloud. And it's a very small growing Miscanthus that's recommended for pots. It does get taller in the garden. I know for a fact it can get another 1.5 foot, maybe even 2 foot, but in the pot it stays relatively small, so that's a couple of feet. And it has that lovely plume. It's more pendulous than a lot of them, as you can see from that. It's more pendulous, and when it first comes out, it is red. That's why it's called Red Cloud. But they all eventually turn to this sort of brown look and buff colour, eventually. So that's a nice small one if you're after a smaller one. I keep it in the pot, and that's pretty much going to be getting potted on each year, as I have been since I bought it in a 1 litre pot 2 years ago, and it's got to that size. If you're going to split them, the best time to split them would be when they're actively growing. And I wouldn't really attempt it until they are, because you can cause a lot of damage, and that's later in the summer. Late spring, even into midsummer would be fine. Oh, we'll just mention this while we're eating, though this is not a Miscanthus, this is a Cortaderia that I brought to your attention last year, and it's called Tiny Pamper, and it's in a plant pot, and it is by far the smallest pampas grass I've ever seen, and I love it. It's good. It's got a lovely seed head on, and as I suspected, it did come through Pumila, which is a smaller growing pampas grass, but Pumila can still make 4 to 5 foot, whereas Tiny Pamper, as you can see at the minute, that's probably 1.5 foot wide by just over 1 foot high. The flowers should shoot up a bit more, but it shouldn't do much more than that. And I just thought I'd bring that to your attention because it's looking so good as I film this. Anyway, right, come on, let's carry on. Hey up, Hamish is climbing that tree. I've never seen him up there before, but there he is. Let's film him for cat fans. Hello, mate. He's a good-looking cat. I basically just stuck a few Giganteus types in here. And Giganteus types can take 2 or 3 years, maybe 4 years, before they start really clumping up and getting to the size they should. and it's always experimentation. Another one here. But the one I've got behind it, this one's called Professor Richard Hansen. And I'm a little bit disappointed because at a previous address, this one used to do beautiful, and it was on more sandy soil, which it did prefer, to be honest. Although they will grow in lots of types of soils. This one should be at least 3 foot higher in its seed head, and it's not because of where I've planted it. So you've got to be careful where you plant these things. It's a very nice little grass. Well, big grass really, tall grass, but well behaved. So the Professor is too close to the fence behind it, so we need to move it forward, and we will. We'll put it forward there, and it should do a lot better as a result, and it will grow taller. And by that I mean the seed head, or I call them flower heads. Most people call them seed heads. Now, while we're talking about seed heads, Miscanthus giganteus for us rarely flowers. Although I have seen some in the fields now that tend to flower every year. And most of those are yellow, so I assume they've come from a particular grass from wherever they got them from, and they're all split from the same one. But mine don't flower. So that's one of the downsides. The good sides is Miscanthus giganteus looks fantastic as a jungle type plant. So if you've got a jungly garden, that's the one you want to be looking for. It's a clump former and it's beautiful. And this one is called Miscanthus Sue, and it's another small grower. It has a beautiful orange finish to the year in the leaves, and it's doing it now. It's starting. This has only recently been put in here, so it's not as good as it should be, but it's a nice, what I call diminutive type, so the smaller types. And you can't really make that out, can you? Let's have a look at it this way. There you go. So most of the Miscanthus have the similar type of flower and a similar leaf, but all different shapes, sizes, as I said before. But this does remain small. So that's Miscanthus Sue, and I love this one. I've had it many years, and it's very hard to get hold of this one, so I'm pleased I got it all those years back. And it starts off with this red flower. It's still carrying on. The summer's been, although wet, it's carrying on quite warm towards the end of it, so it's doing all right. Now the next one we'll move to is this one, and I'm really not showing it at the best time. Another month and this will be what we call blown. It will go into a candy floss look, a white candy floss look. And at the moment, it's not doing that. Now, I've shown this many times last year when it was at its best. And it's not there yet, but I thought, well, I'm doing the Miscanthus video now, so let's get on with it. And this one's called Miscanthus Sinensis Memory. And if you're going to get only one Miscanthus, I seriously think this is the one you should probably try and aim for, because it is a beauty. There are others coming onto the market all the time that I'm evaluating and looking at and thinking, should I have it or shouldn't I have it? A lot of them are the same, but this one kind of stands out from the crowd, and it was named after the famous nurseryman Ernst Pagels. It was named after him in his honour, really. And it's a cracker. It starts off with this lovely pinkish, it has a pinkish tone to start with. Let's see if we can pick it up. You can probably just pick up that that's got a pinkish tone in the seed head. It's beautiful, but its best show by far is not when it's at this stage, it's when it goes on another month and all these seed heads are pollinated, and they pollinate by wind, remember, so they fluff up and then it really comes into its own. Now, it's not at its ultimate height yet. That's about 6 feet at the moment. It will make it to 7, if not 8 feet, and it looks beautiful when it's blowing in the wind, when it gets to that phase. Now, if you look back on some of my other videos, or some of my shorts, as they call it, you will see this particular one there when it was at that other phase. So it's worth searching out and having a look. And definitely worth getting. We'll pan around here. Calamagrostis is looking fantastic. We're now in October. So this is Miscanthus Malpas, and one of the best. I know I said if you only get one grass, it should be memory. If you can't find memory, get this one. This is Malpas and is a stunner. It's not doing great at the moment. It will. It's still a baby. It just needs time to go, and it'll get there eventually. It will make a 4 to 5 foot clump. I've seen this down at Beth Chatto's up to 7, 8 foot tall. And I think they'd fed it, to be honest, because I don't think it should really get as tall as that. Not as big as that particular one was. It really was huge. And it finishes with a lovely look. So that seed head blows lovely and it puffs up like little dust cleaners. And it has a really nice finish when those seed heads blow. And it holds that look through most of the winter, to be honest. Depending on what sort of winter we have. You know, if we have a really bad winter, then that's going to change that look. So remember, I've only been in this garden 3.5 years now, so most of my grasses are still immature and not mature specimens at all. Whereas this one is quite nice, is looking good, fairly quick. It will double, if not triple, in its girth and look absolutely stunning, but it looks stunning at this size as well. And it's one of the smaller ones. I'd call this one a small one, and this is called Miscanthus Sinensis Yakushimensis. Now I know it as Yakushimensis because I bought it as Yakushimensis and it identifies the person I bought it from, and it's for no other reason. It's actually Miscanthus Sinensis Yakushima, named after the island it was found. And there are now other cultivars that have come from this that have been selected. Knoll Gardens have a couple of really nice ones selected from this. One called Cindy and one called Starlight that is selected out of this particular bunch of grasses because they can self-seed and produce lots of themselves, and each one will be different. As you know, this is how varieties come about. So he selected them out so that you're buying a couple of nice ones. Cindy is a particularly good one as a pink head, whereas this one is more of a buff colour, a goldy buff colour really at this particular time. And I've had this one for at least 15 years. And I say I've had this one 15 years. This has been split from a plant I bought 15 years ago. But it's looking really good in here. Now this is in the Cloister Pergola, as you can see, and it's doing okay. It's not bad at all, that. And very, very floriferous. And this one actually does look good in plant pots, because I've had it in plant pots in the past and sat it on the corners of houses, and it looks really nice from most angles. Well, all grasses do, don't they? Let's face it. So let's go to this one now. This is still a Sinensis, a Miscanthus Sinensis, but it's a condensatus type. So there's this lovely striation in here. It's lovely, lovely stripe. And each leaf can be slightly different to the next one. So this one's slightly different to that one. You can see, just looking at them, how different they are. But basically, that midrib is quite chunky in the middle. It's creamy green, really. Now this one very, very rarely flowers. I have known it to flower for some people, and it definitely flowers down south, but rarely in Lincolnshire has it ever flowered for me. So I grow it as this, well, a feature plant really. And it's a clumper again, and looking really nice. So that's a beauty. And that's Miscanthus Sinensis Condensatus Cabaret. A beautiful, beautiful grass. And again, would look good in your jungle garden. So we'll wander up here, wander past the ponds, the dip pools, which are here. And right here we have yet another Yakushimensis that I call Yakushimensis. And this is slightly smaller. From the same plant. All my Yakushimensis are from the same plant. And this is slightly smaller because it was moved here last year. But it's starting to look really nice now. So we'll not linger on that one, but we'll move to this one now. This is a stunner, this one. If you can get hold of this one, definitely worth having. This one is Miscanthus Sinensis Poseidon. So there's a close-up of one of the seed heads, and it has this pinkish, coppery tone. And it's a beauty. And it has lovely, chunky leaves on this one. And it's a very old variety, this one, and it's an Pagels one. And it's a beauty. So that's Miscanthus Sinensis Poseidon. And I often wonder why they call it Poseidon. And I'm sure it's something to do with the sea god. And it does look really nice, but it is a real nice one. Very old cultivar, not always easy to get hold of that one. But give it a go if you can. Worth having. I love it. So we'll sweep around to the new section that we've created, that you'll have seen in one of my other videos when we made this section. Obviously not finished yet. This one here is a great plant if you're looking for some sort of an early season start, because this does it quite early on, and it has lovely, in fact, they're not as good as they have been in other years, the colours. It has these sort of like lovely red coppery leaves, and that's almost from the start, and it's quite a small one. I'd say that's a mid-sized growing one. It's next to this aster behind it, and it suits it really well, but it's now beginning to get clumped out by the aster, because the aster is growing quite big. But it's a beauty, and it flowers quite early. It has coppery flowers. It's no bigger than 3.5 to 4 foot, I should say, over time. And I'm actually going to move that one. We're going to put that one to that corner there. So where that corner folds in there, I'm actually going to sit it there, and it's going to look beautiful. So there you go. That's Miscanthus Sinensis Ghana, a smaller one. Now going back to Cabaret, this is a better sample of it, or a better example, shall we say. And there you go. It's a beauty. And at the minute, that's 6.5, 7 foot. And as I said, I don't often flower. I wish it would, because I know they're going to be beautiful. And I've seen flowers on this one in other parts of the UK. Oh, look, there's a little butterfly on it. Quite late, but it is warm today, so I assume that's why they're out. Now, the downfall to it is, look, you can see there's some leaves falling there, and that was in them winds we had a couple of weeks back. Absolutely knocked them for 6. But nevertheless, it's doing all right. Now, let's just show you this one while we're here. I shouldn't really show you this one. I shouldn't put it in my film at all, but I will. And this is Memory, and it's just a little split. One of the flower heads or seed heads has been broken by the wind again, and there are just 2 left. And that has been put in there because over time it's going to make 7 foot, and you're going to spot it from up at the house, and that's the reason I've put that one in there. So that's nice. Now we'll move to the right here, and this is supposedly Miscanthus Sinensis Cascade. I'm not convinced it is. I really am. I've mentioned this before. I bought it as Cascade, and Cascade is more pink, and Cascade does what it says. It cascades over like that. This one isn't doing that. It's not showing that at all. And it's really an annoyance, because these nurseries who are reputable sell these plants as something they're not, and they need to stop doing that, because people like myself come across them, buy them, and discover that they're not what they've sold. Now, the average person wouldn't have a clue that that wasn't called Cascade, because to them it is what it is, but to me it's not Cascade. I actually think that's Rot Silver, and the reason I'm telling you that is because I've got Rot Silver right here, and it's a very, very similar, if not the same. This one here is a good doer, quite a clumper eventually once it gets going. He's looking really good at the moment, and this is Rot Silver. And I think the one that they've sold me as Cascade is also Rot Silver. I don't know, I can't be sure. I have got Cascade. I am going to replace it with that should the other one I've got turn out to be Cascade. It is annoying. I mean, it bloody does annoy me when they do this, and this happens all the time. Nurseries should know better. No excuses. If any nurseries are watching this, there's no excuses. Buy the correct plant at source and make sure you keep it true. That's my little rant over. So here's another Miscanthus condensatus Cabaret. Again, I like it so much, I plant it all around the garden. This is a younger plant. It's just in this corner at the moment, and that should look good over time. But it is a good one to get. Now, let's bring you to the other one that I recommend you get, because it will flower. This is called Cosmopolitan, and it's got an altogether different type of leaf, and the white is on the outside of this one. If you remember Cabaret, in fact, let's do you a taste test here. I'm going to be mean here. I'm going to pull a leaf off. So, this is Cabaret, and then this is Condensatus. So, just so you can tell the difference, there you go. So, Condensatus says that's mid-rib in the centre, whereas Cosmopolitan, it's to the edges, and a little bit in the middle, but not very much. And that's how Cosmopolitan is. Again, it grows just the same as Cabaret, but exciting. It produces flowers. Well, excited. These will push up quite a distance. I wish I was further south, because if I was further south, these would already be up and out. They're a bit late for me this year, but they will catch up, and they should hopefully send up them seed heads before the end of the year, and that's great. So we'll give this a mention. I've mentioned this a million gazillion times. This is Miscanthus Sinensis Elutaria riparius. And I'll confirm that it's made 14 feet this year, and we're going to keep that measurement. I think it's got a little bit bigger, but we're going to say 14 foot. Beautiful. But as I've mentioned many times before, you need a root barrier for this grass, because it is a bit of a runner. Irrespective of what people say, plant it in your garden. I've been told it's fine in the garden. No, it's not. I would definitely put root barrier in there, and I have. So what else have we got? We have a few more to go. I'll carry on. This is a really nice one. Now, this is the most common one you'll probably get hold of, and this is called Ferner Austin. It's called Far East. It's a Miscanthus Sinensis going into its autumn colours, which are wonderful. It has a deep red flower when it first starts, or seed head. I'll always call them flowers, so we'll just say flowers, and you'll know I mean seed head. And it has these deep red flowers at this time, well, at the start of its seeding. And then they turn to this, as many do, buff colour. And that's wonderful. And that is I'd say, small to mid-sized grower that's worth having. And you probably will get this in most garden centres. Miscanthus Sinensis. And then we'll move across to here, because this is mine. Now this is in its 5th year, 3 years in the garden. And this is the one I'm trialling that came as a sport from Miscanthus Goldbar, which is the striped one, the zebra type grass. And it starts with this. In fact, there's a good example there. There's a better example there. So the colour's wonderful. I think you can pick that colour out. And it is almost a coppery red colour. The smaller one down there is showing it better, actually. And that's really nice. And it's still in trial. It hasn't got to that lovely leaf colour. So the one I've just shown you, which was Miscanthus Ferner Austin, which means Far East, has a very similar colour to this. Oh, I notice again, look, it's got loads of little normal grass in here. And this is an annoyance. I am actually going to be lifting this next year and splitting it, because I need to trial it in another part of the garden. But it's all looking promising. It's remaining diminutive, small like that. So hopefully it'll stay small. But I want that red leaf to come in. That red leaf did come in earlier last year, but it all depends on what sort of a summer we're having, if I'm honest. Let's pull some more grass out as I do when I'm here. Yeah, I can see there's a little running grass getting in this, and that's what's in the middle of it. And it came with me from another nursery where I'd kept it, and it found itself into the pot. But anyway, we'll deal with that. So that's nice. So it's small. So that's Miscanthus Sinensis, and the trial name, as I'm calling it, is Sprite, and it will hopefully show me some of those nice leaf colours. Is there any at the moment? There was some earlier on in the year. You can see there's some changes in there, but it usually goes this lovely orangey red yellow colour. That'll be way better than it is at the moment. Okay, so for all of the people who know about Beth Chatto Gardens, and Beth Chatto herself, this is one named after her by Ernst Pagels. And this is a very fine one. And it is a really, really nice one. And it starts off with these very pale pinky coloured flowers, and they look really nice. And it's fine. I'd say this is a really fine textured one. So if you're looking for something less rugged, this is the one to go for, because it's very fine indeed, as you can see from there, and it's wonderful. And again, I would say that's a small to mid-sized grower. At the moment, it's what, 5 foot, 6 foot, and I've had that in there for 2 years, and it's doing very well indeed. Now, just to the left, we'll look at this one again, and again, this is Miscanthus Sinensis Memory. This is one that was getting crowded out near the floating deck, so I've moved it here because it needed to be moved, and it's not producing as good a flower at the moment. There are lots of flowers to come, but I fear that they may not come to anything because it got moved too late. So this one has really impressed me. I've had it 2.5, 3 years now, and it's not very fast to grow, or clump up. In fact, as I said, it's 3 years old and it hasn't really got very big at all, but nevertheless, it has this lovely leaf colour, and it practically starts off with this. From the moment it starts pushing up its leaves, they turn to this lovely colour. It's definitely worth having. And then later on, it produces these flowers, which are actually red when they first come out. Is there any little examples I could show you? No, but it is. It's a little bit more red, then turns to this typical colour here, which looks good at this colour. And it has this upright look that I like. Now, I've partnered it with this Hylotelephaeum, which is Carfunkelstein, and I did that because of the colour of the Carfunkelstein, or the sedum, the old sedum, matches with a leaf, and it just looks good. And to the left of that I never mentioned is a pittosporum called Tom Thumb, which also kind of looks good. I may be overdoing it with the colouring, I don't know, but I like it and it looks good. So that's definitely worth having, as you can see from that. So that's Miscanthus Sinensis Samurai, little beauty. Now this one I've shown on previous videos, and I moved it at the wrong time. Don't move your grasses at the wrong time, it does really cause problems with them. And this is Miscanthus Sinensis Cheugensis. And this was found by a modern day plant hunter again. And they found this one. So this was found on one of their trips, probably in the Himalayas, I don't know. Asia definitely. And it was found by Krieg Farm Plants. And they are down in Wales, and they are modern day plant hunters. And this is an absolute stunner. I don't think they realise what a cracking plant they actually found. And it's more yellow now, because I've picked this or planted it at the wrong time. It's not producing it as good as it did last year. Next year it'll be a different story. It is going to make it this year, but at the moment not where I wanted it. I wanted that to be a month on, so I could show you the yellow in the flowers. But we'll nip around to this one. This is one of the splits I took, and it has a bit of a bigger flower on this one. And it has that look. And what I like about this one is it has a very congested leaf. So the leaves are going all over the place there, but that's a nice attribute. In fact, if we look at it again from here, you can see that very look. And the best way of showing that again, so take a good look at that, very congested. And if we go to the back of it and look at the one behind it there, you can see that's very, very neat and skinny and fine. So that's a bit nicer. So here's another Miscanthus, and this is in a bit of shade, and shade doesn't really worry them. They do okay. And this one's called Miscanthus Sinensis Morning Light. Now, if you've got a pond, I'd recommend you plant this to the edge of it. Don't plant it in it, but just to the edge of it, so the reflection is caught in the pond, because this really does look good next to them. It's a baby, as you can imagine. That was tiny last year. That was literally 3 leaves. So it's doing quite well. And I'll just leave it alone and let it become what it needs to become. And it has what we call a vasal shape, so like a vase. And it's going to look stunning in the future, but we've got to wait. So I think we're nearly at the end of the Miscanthus. I can see a couple here that we'll show you. Now this is new to me this year, and I think this comes from the Eastern Europe, I think, this particular one. Somewhere like Poland or somewhere like that. And this one is another Miscanthus, and it's more of a, I think it's more of a giganteous type, although it's not very big at the moment. It's new in, remember. It's very small at the moment. It should make it like a giganteous, so it could make up to 7-8 foot. I don't know. We shall see. And this one is called Megadot, and it's one of the zebra grasses. And remember, I told you there are more than just one type of zebra grass. So that is Miscanthus Sinensis Megadot, because the dots are spaced and quite large, as you can see. And I suspect that's because it's a giganteous type, I think. I don't know for sure at the moment, but we'll see that in the next 2 or 3 years. Now this, although it's a very, very nice grass indeed, a very small one, it's very slow. And it appears to be slightly spreading, but I don't think that's going to be a problem, because it's so slow, the spread on it, that not going to cause me any problems. And this one's called Kupperswerg. I'll put that on screen because I'm not saying it correctly probably. And it's a very nice one. Now this is probably a candidate for being moved. Because I've been playing about with this border, I think this really needs to be moved further down the garden. In fact, probably just to here. And it wouldn't hurt me to move that at this time of year. I could probably put it here, which it would suit it better. But it does look good, and I think it's going to get lost because I've moved the Elenium there behind it, and I think it's going to get lost over time. And this is the right time of year to show you this film on Miscanthus. I love them. When do we move them and when do we cut them back? We move them really when they're fully growing. So late spring for some of them, midsummer for others. Depends how far the growth is, then split them. Lift them, pull them apart, or dig them in the garden and just dig a bit out and pot it up or move it to another part. But really, really leave that till later on because they really don't like it. When do we cut them down? We cut them down when we feel like it, really. I tend to go for maybe, let's have a think about this, January nowadays. You know, the weather's changed so much that I'm actually starting to cut down in January, but towards the back end of January, maybe into early February, chop them down and then they'll start again and reward you with this look at the back end. The best thing about Miscanthus or any grass is that they're late season, a lot of them, and they just provide this altogether different look in your garden, and no garden should be without them. They really shouldn't be without them. So there you go. Little talk on the Miscanthus. And I'll talk to you on the next one. Ta-da!